Each morning, real RSI setups are broken down with entry strategies and the technical reasoning behind every trade. This is RSI Trade of the Day with Verified Investing.
Welcome to the RSI Trade of the Day. My name is Benjamin Poole, head trader here at Verified Investing. Thank you guys so much for joining me this Tuesday morning at 8:45 a.m. every day the market is open. So I've got a couple different charts that I'm going to go over with you guys. There is some stocks that are ready to rip. I'm looking forward to seeing these pull back slightly, but then continue higher. I have some great levels. I'm also looking at a couple different charts that are getting a little bit overextended. We're going to go over a couple of those first, but you guys want to stay tuned for the end to find out what those momentum stocks are that I think are going to continue to rip higher. So the first thing I want to go over, I've gone over this a couple different times. GM has this nice upsloping trend line. Let me go ahead and show you where I'm connecting these trend lines. So if you take the daily time frame, you connect this low pivot from the 17th of March of 2020, have all this price consolidation, draw a trend line through that area. It connects with this trend line or this pivot top here on the 22nd of November. And then this gives you your next level of resistance. So if I zoom in a little bit more, I could see that the potential upside target is about $70.50. Combine that with an overextended RSI, this is where I would enter a short trade for a swing trade and a day trade. I know I've gone over this a couple different times and it's slowly moving a little bit higher, but $70.50 is where I would likely enter. Now, if price action gets above that entry point, you can always stop out. The great thing is this gives you not only a great entry point, but the downside potential is likely to go to this gap fill right here at $57.97. So your risk to reward is really good on a stock like GM. Another stock I'm looking at is LVS. LVS doesn't have a lot of information anymore. So when I was going over LVS a couple different times, I was looking at the upward momentum. So now that we've cleared a pivot top, the sentiment in this can kind of neutralize and the volatility is neutralizing. And so I don't have as good of a read on this. GM, on the other hand, had some continuation move to the upside plus pivot tops and at all-time highs. LVS isn't there yet, right? So it's not at the all-time highs. And so price can consolidate here for a little bit longer and then continue higher. The RSI is still not overbought, as you can see in the daily time frame. The RSI is still towards or right at the 70, so it's not quite overbought. I would leave this one alone as of right now. IREN, I had gone over. Here's what I want to show you guys in this particular chart. This is how I kind of come up with specific levels. What happened with IREN at the beginning of yesterday? You had this great pop to the upside. I was looking to short this. But then what happened is price action just slowly drifted lower. The RSI continued a little bit lower as well. Now you've got more of a neutral RSI where the price action or the RSI isn't getting sharply below the 30 or sharply above the 70. With this sideways price action, I don't have an advantage. So I'm going to switch to the daily time frame and see that you still got this red bar candle that price action could get to. But there's no opportunity for me to go long or go short on this particular stock for a day trade. Now, if we get up to $75.05, that would be a great entry for a short, but that would be more of a swing trade basis. You look for the volatility. So here's a great example of awesome volatility. Look at what happened to Qualcomm. Qualcomm is an amazing chart. So what I want to mention about Qualcomm had announced that it is now going to start creating its own AI chips and data centers and stuff like that. It's going to start rivaling with NVIDIA. So what we're looking at is the volatility in the price action of Qualcomm. Price action headed really high. It was up as much as 20% yesterday. We were actually short in the live day trading room, and we were getting squeezed big time. Then the price action started coming down. The RSI started dropping. Price action consolidated sideways and slowly floated down. Now that we've had this float down in the markets, we're getting it pushed down. In the Qualcomm, it's getting pushed down. And I'll show you what that looks like in the charts. Now it's getting ready for a big bounce to the upside. So I'm really bullish on Qualcomm right now. So here's what I was mentioning. The price action headed really high in the morning session, put in this little bit of a negative RSI divergence. So with negative RSI divergence, what I'm looking for is a close on a day or on a 1 minute candle, because I'm looking at the 1 minute candles. Close on a 1 minute candle would be right here, and look at where the RSI was. It was at 96. Price action then came down. The RSI came down. That is what's supposed to happen. Then you look at price action. Price action ended up closing at 204. So that's higher, whereas the RSI closed lower. So this is creating a negative RSI divergence with price action heading higher, the RSI heading lower. And then the price action of Qualcomm ended up heading lower throughout the morning session, all the way into the afternoon. The RSI stayed really weak, got below the 30 as price action kept going down. Now I'm going to switch to the daily time frame. Let me go ahead and remove this. So the daily time frame, what we're looking at is where is the next potential level of support. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this prior pivot right here. This is an open candle. And then look at all this price action. You've got these pivot highs right here, pivot highs right here. And then you've got a kiss of this previous gap fill at $175.53. I am long Qualcomm at $175.53. This is amazing support. Ton of support in here with price action getting above it. As price action gets back below, this is where price action is likely to get a bounce. Also, what I'm liking is now that we're getting some volatility back in Qualcomm, this RSI established itself above the 70. Now it can get back below the 70, consolidating a little bit, and then that gives way for price action and the RSI to continue to the upside. All right, Coinbase is another stock that I was looking at. Let's go to the daily time frame, show you what I was seeing. I was looking for a potential upside target to $387.32. Similar to IREN, the price action basically put in a doji candle yesterday, meaning that the buyers and the sellers pretty much equaled themselves out and closed pretty flat. It was actually slightly negative. So there's no good read on this. As far as a day trade, I can't really trade this. I need an advantage. I need price action to either extend overly to the upside or to the downside to get either that snapback or that springboard effect to the upside. So IREN is, Coinbase is off the table. One stock that I'm looking at is SanDisk, SNDK. So here is the 1 minute time frame. I'm going to go ahead and show you what happened yesterday. I'd mentioned $86.13 was where my upside potential short level was. Price action in the pre-market got up there. However, during market hours, it got up as high as $91.82. And then this is what I love to see in the price action of SanDisk or any stock. You got this big pullback in the stock. The RSI headed lower. And then all of a sudden, you had this continual float throughout the entire morning session into the afternoon session. Price action just kept getting beaten up. And look at the RSI. So as it starts taking out pivots, you got the RSI below the 30. Got above the 70, try to get above the 70. However, there were no high pivot points taken out. So anytime we're flipping momentum, we need also a pivot to be taken out with the RSI hitting above 70. If the RSI gets above 70 without any pivot tops getting taken out, that means the sellers are still in control. And that's a sign to stay away from that and don't chase it thinking that it's going to continue to the upside, even though it looks to have flipped to the upside. Now, had price action taken out a pivot top on SNDK with the RSI at 70, then we can start looking at possibly going long on a stock like that. However, it didn't happen. Now price is getting beaten up. So then let me go ahead and switch to the daily time frame. You're going to have this gap fill at $167.05. This is going to be where all these buyers who were, or all these people who had wished they were would have bought as it went up. When price action gets into this level at $167.05, they're going to be eating this thing up. You should get a bounce, at least a 2 to 3% bounce to the upside. Now, if price action starts breaking below the $167.05 level on SanDisk, because it's so elevated, price action can then flush through. We saw that in OKLO. We saw that in Coinbase, a couple different stocks that once the selling pressure continues to the downside, that, or as soon as selling pressure persists, it can continue, because those profit takers who were waiting for that $200 pierce are now fearing that it's never going to get back up there. And so that forces the pressure down. I do like this. If it hits SNDK, $167.05 within the first 10 to 15 minutes. After that point, I would be waiting for a lower price target. So if we look at the daily time frame, it's still overly extended. You still have this pivot top, this secondary pivot top. This price action got above, and now I'm anticipating price action eventually getting back down to $100 on SanDisk. Getting some negative RSI divergence, price action heading higher, RSI heading lower. Now we can start getting some more volatility and fluctuation in the price of SanDisk. Okay, I had a couple other ones. The last one I want to go over is AMD. AMD is a strong stock. Price action was whippy in the morning session. The RSI kind of stayed pretty neutral, never really making confirmation of a push to the upside or to the downside. And then towards the end of the day, we had a nice bid in the markets and the bid in AMD. And this is on the 1 minute time frame, indicating that price action is likely to head higher today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the daily time frame and find out where the potential upside for AMD is. So I'm going to take this pivot top here, connect to this pivot top here, and extend this out. This is where price action is likely to head to, $173.12. I am shorting AMD at $173.12. I think it's going to get up there. If we start taking out this upsloping trend line, I think you got much, much higher to go, maybe even $300 on AMD before any significant pullbacks. I am short in my service on AMD through an ETF, and I was looking at the volatility in AMD, and it had bigger volatility. Now the volatility is starting to dry up, and so it's proving that right now I'm currently out of the money on this. I've got a small percentage of my portfolio, so I'm looking to add if it gets up to $273.13. Again, it could go up to $300 though. So just beware of the ability to maneuver through these trades if you guys end up getting into them. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Qualcomm and AMD, I'm still kind of bullish on. Definitely Qualcomm. Qualcomm, I think, is 275 is a great buying opportunity, and you can make a decent amount, 5, 10, 15, even as much as 20% to the upside on Qualcomm, especially as this market sentiment is shifting from more of the bigger players into these smaller companies, a $200 billion company. And so I think it's got a lot of upward momentum. So again, thank you guys so much for joining. Please, if you guys are getting any information out of this, please make sure you're sharing with your friends so they can get it. And then make sure you're liking, subscribing, and following, ringing that bell so you can get notified every morning at 8:45. Gareth Soloway is going live in less than 2 minutes in my trading game plan. You guys don't want to miss that. He's got some great information for you. And we'll see you guys next time in the charts. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.